I look at my team as my partners because without them, you're not going to get to the moon. First, I want to say thank you for inviting me.
No problem.
It's an honor. So what's my sales story? So I've been professionally selling for 16 years. Half the time I was an AE. And then about a little bit more than 8 years ago, I got into SaaS. And then started building and scaling business development teams. So 16 years doing professionally, but realistically speaking, I've been selling all kind of crap to when I was a kid to my peers. My brother is an optician, and he used to go to conferences and get all these tchotchkes from the conferences and like keychains, and I would just take them and sell them and make a couple of bucks on them. So since then, I guess I'm a third generation seller. So I guess it's in my genes as well.
That's awesome. So one part I picked up out there was you kind of went from closing your own deals to helping others close their deals. What was kind of the driving factor behind that, do you think, Eddie?
Well, I'll tell you why business development specifically. When I was a seller, it was full cycle sales, right? And if you're spending your time on closing deals, you're not spending your time on building your pipe. Now, if you're spending your time on building your pipe, you're not spending your time closing deals. It's a time management skill that you have to develop within time. Some people over the years still don't have it, right? Okay. Only the best really could manage that. And then when I was introduced to account development, or sales development, or business, whatever we want to call it, I call business development because I look at it as more of a strategic role rather than a tactical role. A lot of organizations, they look at SDRs very tactical, very entry level, and they're treated as such. Not our teams. So anyway, when I was first introduced to business development, I was like, my mind was just blown, right? I'm like, wow, this team has a very strategic, heavy foundation to the go-to-market funnel.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. So I imagine in that time you've worked with some great reps and some not so great reps. But if we start with what defines an A player, there's two sides to this. There's the metrics that make that up. So they need to be kind of like bringing in X amount of deals. There's also the characteristics. So if we begin with the characteristics, maybe we can go on to the metrics then. In your eyes, what makes an A player characteristically?
A players are unique. They're somewhat harder to manage because one, they think they're know-it-alls because they overexceed, and they do less with more. Meaning you see their outputs a little bit less, their daily activities are less, but then you see them producing all these numbers, right? So that's not the part that's hard to manage, but when you come to them and ask them what's going on, they're like, I got this, and it's not the first time or the second time I've encountered this, where you kind of have to build trust with them, right? Yeah. If they say they got this, then you have to know, okay, John Doe, Jane Doe, they got it, right? But they are somewhat a little bit harder to manage because, again, like I mentioned earlier, they come off the bat like they're know-it-alls. So
would you say that, I guess with a C player and a B player, if you don't want to call them that, leadership's super important, right? So as you're a leader of an A player, how does that approach differ? Like, do you have to have more of a backseat role, is what you're saying, or can you be as hands-on as you would be with a C and B?
I mean, with the B players and the C players, it's not about taking. It's about trust. I was once told by one of my leaders, you want to gain so much trust, and this goes back to the Vince Lombardi quote, right? That you have to have love and for your associates, right, and your players,
Yeah,
um, because that's what builds trust at the end of the day, right? And you have to have trust
okay.
in them. No, oh, yes, and the A players, also the B players and the C players, and you have to gain so much trust that as a leader that, and again, this goes up, all the way. It trickles from the top, right? Also, my leader, right, my CEO, they have to know that they can close their eyes, fall backwards, with their hands tied behind their backs, and knowing that we'll catch them. And the same thing for my team, both the A players and the B players and the C players. And you have to gain so much trust in them that you also want to show that you're picking their brains, that you want to
Yeah,
get some information from them. First of all, they're the voice of truth. They'll tell you data could tell you, if you beat data hard enough, I'll tell you exactly what you want it to tell you, right?
yeah,
But the voice of truth will tell you what's actually happening on the ground. They're the troops. And that's how you get the C players to B players and the B players to A players, is when you give them enough empowerment, and show that you do trust them. They're like, okay, he thinks that I got this. Let's show him. Let's prove it. Because at the end of the day, I
awesome.
mean, as cliche as it sounds, but the numbers don't lie.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I like that idea surrounding trust. Isn't one that I've come across too much. So if a rep enters your organization, let's say fresh out of college or whatever, do they immediately have your trust, or is trust something that is gained through consistently performing for the company?
No, I don't think you can't. Let me rephrase that. You can not trust the person off the bat. You have to have
Okay.
some sort of trust. This is why, for instance, countries that you never thought, you never think in your lifetime that will actually do business together, but everything is built on trust at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Countries that have relations together to one another. They don't have to like one another, right? But they do have to have some sort of a trust, and it's just it takes time to build,
Okay.
right? If that makes sense. So like when someone starts, you somewhat trust them, yes, right? But it takes time to build, and it's vice versa, by the way, right? When your team, they they know who you are as a leader, but trust takes time, and they have to start building. You have to build their trust as well, both at the same time. It works. It's vice versa.
So how do you ensure that they build trust in you in that sense? If this is kind of based off performance, they consistently perform. Is it the exact same way around, or is there something else there?
Well, to show that you're there for them, to listen, right? I think
Yeah.
listening. It's not only about listening. I think Theodore Roosevelt said it best. It's not only about listening. It's also about caring,
Yeah.
right? And to show that you care, and it's not. Everyone can show, but it's actually caring. That's what actually counts. It's the caring part. So yeah, to show that you're there for them, show that you care for them and about them and things that are happening in their life, and it's okay to talk to them about what's also happening in their personal lives, because at the end of the day, we're all human and we all go
Sure.
through our ups and downs, right? And you have to listen sometimes and just be that shoulder or that person that they can vent to. That's the trust.
Yeah, I think I speak to a lot of sales leaders, and they kind of always say the same thing. It's down to the best kind of leaders look at their reps as people and not ways of reaching quota and performance
I would
indicators.
rephrase that.
Okay.
I would look at my as this team as my partners,
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Why partners?
because without them, you're not going to get to the moon,
That's a good quote. I like
and
that
you
quote.
and you rely on one another.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's great. If we look at closing the gap, if we look at what's more of a difficult task in your eyes as a leader, closing the gap between getting a C player to a B player or a B player to an A player.
Honestly, I think they're both equally. I don't want to say hard. It's not a hard and it's not a challenge, but it's difficult to answer that because it's based on individuals. You know, it's a two-way street. So both parties have to tango here, right? So if you know if let's say the leader is willing to do whatever it takes, but then the other person on the other end is like, no, I'm good with this, then you know they're not going to progress. It can't be just a one-sided approach.
Okay, perfect. So in your kind of experience, have you ever known anybody to go from a C to an A? And if so, kind of how did they do that?
Um, you know, I have a few examples. I remember that I hope this person doesn't kill me. You know, I had someone on my team who was a walking cliche. From the moment he started, and he was like, you know, I eat my quota for lunch without salt. So I was like, okay, you know, I've been around the block. I heard that one before. And this person was just amazing, amazing. He took it to places that I couldn't even imagine. And today he's one of the top sellers up in a well-known global company. And not only he did whatever it takes to get there, but he was also a good listener. He took the criticism as constructive criticism, and he knew where the boundaries were, right, between a manager and a peer or a friend rather. But he listened and he was open
Yeah,
to everything. Wasn't like my way or the highway.
yeah,
He was always looking to if it's not broken, right, you know, why break it? So he kind of like if it's working, let me break it and rebuild it again. Take a step back and look at that board. I'm like, okay, maybe I can make different plays to get because there's a million routes to Rome, right?
yes.
And you just have to kind of build a way there.
Awesome. So it
Asking
sounds like,
questions, a ton of questions. It doesn't matter if he was hitting his quota or not. Even if let's say it was overexceeding, he still ask questions, always hungry, always open, and on top of that, always willing to help his peers that are not there yet.
yeah, that sounds like a pretty good rep. Sounds like someone who's kind of best way to put it is humbly confident, right? I think confidence is important in sales. But
Oh,
also being
absolutely.
humble enough to know that I've never read the whole book. I need to keep on learning, and there's always something to be learned, right?
Yeah.
So was that rep when he started you? Was he an SDR or BDR? Was he an AE at the time?
No, he was a BDR.
BDR.
Today he's a strategic AE.
Fantastic, great story. So, a couple of my two last questions here. How do you distinguish between an individual's weakness and a sales team's weakness?
You kind of find that this out. You could find it out during the hiring process, yes, but then you're like, okay, this is salvageable. I could fix here and there. Um, or you could find this out throughout like the onboarding process when you're doing like simulations. You're doing not the email simulations, but you could, but I'm talking about more like the phone simulations. You know, even
Yeah,
with all the technology and the tools that we have today, I take it old school where I have the individuals in front of me and they're as if they're calling me, right? Like an outbound
yeah,
call. And how I would and again, other people on this team, they know this. We go through this constantly. Even we do this sometimes on our workshops, right? But we still do this, and it's uncomfortable. People hate it, but and we really take them to like to the worst case scenario. And you kind of figure it out throughout the whole onboarding process of where their weaknesses are. Like what you thought yesterday, not necessarily is the same thought today. If that makes any sense.
yeah. Of course, and I think the thing is like almost every rep will have weaknesses in some areas. Like it's not an easy job, is it? Especially when my first week, like picking up a phone, it's quite a difficult task. It's something that you eventually just need to do a lot, right?
Oh, I agree. And there's something that I read online a while ago. They took this poll. I forget where this poll was, but it was one of the polls on LinkedIn. That's all we see today on LinkedIn is polls.
Yes.
I can't find it. Let me see if I could find it on my phone. And it was it was very interesting. They asked a bunch of sellers. Here, what is the hardest part of a sell cycle, right? And I think they asked around like 5,000 sellers. And the response was, it was 16% said the hardest part of closing of the sell cycle was closing the deal. 4% presenting a solution. 11% said qualifying the opportunity. Do you know what 68% said?
Shocked me.
Getting the first conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, which is absolutely the hardest.